Yeah, you do? Okay, good. How we doing on parables, friends? You've heard a few? Just a few? This is true. This is true. So today we've got yeah, kind of short, height challenged. Yes. So today we're going to talk about the widow and the unjust judge. Also, this works for me, huh? Yeah. Okay. Also has other names, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So here is the passage from Luke 18. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, in a certain city, there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. Remember that. Neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city, there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, grant me justice against my accuser. For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice so that she may not wear me out by continually coming. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? All right. So we only find this parable in the Gospel of Luke. You've probably also heard it as the persistent widow. You've heard it as the widow and the unjust judge. There's other titles you've probably heard it called. But the interesting, I think I just turned it off. What did I do, Andy? Here we go. Okay, that's what I was trying to do. So what I decided to do today is to use Amy Jill Levine and her rendition or translation, her view of this parable. Amy Jill Levine, for those of you that don't know, is a Jewish woman who is a New Testament professor at Vanderbilt Seminary, a School of Theology, which is where Eric went. Eric also had her, and he's not here. He's on a trip to the beach for spring break, fall break. And he had her as a professor. She's got an interesting take on things just because of where she comes from, right? She comes from the Jewish perspective. And so Paul was telling me that he's reading this book. Not Paul. I'm sorry. Sorry. I was thinking Paul Roseman, but it's not Paul Roseman. She's not a believer. Well, she believes in God. Yeah. She is not a Christian. Yeah. She believes that Jesus was a rabbi and a teacher. Okay. But she is a New Testament scholar. So to me, she holds credibility. Okay. She knows what she's talking about. And she comes from a different perspective than we do, right? And I think that's helpful. So this book has a bunch of Jesus's parables in it. She does not discount who we think Jesus is. She totally respects that. So I'll just leave that with you. So she says, there's a great deal of controversy about how much of this parable was actually told by Jesus and how much Luke, or the author of Luke, may have added to it. So she said that most people agree that verses 2 through 5 are the core of the parable and come from Jesus. So we're going to go back. 2 through 5, she says, is what Jesus would have said. And then Luke would have added the extra part. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. She says Luke added that. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? All right, so remember that. She says that Luke, or the author of Luke, and she's not the only scholar that believes that, that would have been added. All right. So she says, and if you think about it, that this addition kind of assigns a message to the widow's story right away, because he says that the parable is about their need to pray always and not lose heart. See anything about prayer in there? Interesting. All right. So Luke gives a picture of the widow who is poor, elderly, frail, and helpless, crying out to God day and night. But throughout the Gospel of Luke, widows are figures of piety, pity, or potentially both. And we're led to see this widow in the same way. Piety, pity, or both. All right. This is still Amy Jill's interpretation. In the translation that I read, the NRSV, the widow continually asked the judge to grant her justice against her opponent. But the Greek word used for justice, but the Greek word that is used here is not translated or should not be translated as justice, but rather let me be avenged. There's a little bit of difference there, right? Justice and vengeance. So the motivation for justice, to restore balance, to uphold laws, protect society from future harm. Vengeance is a personal thing, right? Anger, hurt, hatred. Makes you look at it a little bit differently. She's coming from a personal place. So what do we know about this judge that's the parable is talking about? We know that unjust is assigned at the verses at the end that we believe, or she believes, that Luke would have added. The parable says, what Jesus says is the judge was one who neither feared God nor had respect for people. And then what do we know about the widow? So this is different than what all of us have perhaps come to believe. We think that in the Old Testament, and most likely true, that widows and women were property, right? They would not have had these rights. She's saying, coming from a Jewish standpoint, that actually in the first century, the Jewish women could have owned their own homes. They could have had access to their own funds, had the freedom to travel, attended the synagogue and the temple, and could plead their own cases in court. And then going back now to what the judge says. Yeah, because this widow keeps bothering me, I'll grant her justice so that she may not wear me out by continually coming, right? So Levine says that in the original language, the word for wear me out is actually a boxing term. And the better translation might be strike me in the face or give me a black eye. So the original parable, as it's written, 2 through 5, without Luke's additions, really keeps us from having either a positive identification with either the judge or the widow. But if you look at what Luke has added to it, let's go back to that again. Looking at 6, and the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. Who do you tend to side with here? When you first read this parable, do you immediately side with either one? Yeah? Who do you side with? Yeah, you feel sorry for the widow. At least I do. Yeah. But what Levine is saying is that the way Jesus would have told this parable, actually, neither one of them have a lot of good things to say, right? And she doesn't necessarily think that either one of them, Jesus was taking a side with either one of them, right? He was leaving it to us. which is typical of parables. Also, she points out there is no sense of closure in this parable. There is no reconciliation between the two at all. It's just kind of left, right? The judge does say, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this because I'm tired of her coming to see me. And she might give me a black eye if I keep letting her come and I don't take care of it. So I'm going to hold on to the questions. So, thoughts on this interpretation or this view of the parable? It's a little bit different, right? You want to say the parable again?
Is that generally accepted that the writers, maybe both the Old and the New, but certainly her point is this is Luke of the New Testament. Is it generally accepted by scholars that the authors always added to whatever Jesus may have said?
Is it accepted? I would say yes. But because
back, they wouldn't know what the original manuscript or that nobody was sitting there taking notes from Jesus.
Exactly. They were not dictating. Mm-hmm. That's what we say. Mm-hmm.
All of these things and put them in this order.
Right. And they would have, so
what, 40 years?
Many years after Jesus would have lived, many years after this would have happened. And also, they were told down verbally as stories, right? And so we all know what happens when we tell stories over and over again. They get embellished, they get changed. Our own view of things gets perhaps added to them, right?
Set up.
Uh-huh. Yep.
A third way that was say that the judge neither feared nor had respect. Feared God and respect for people. So it's sort of like, hey, this is not really a good guy.
Yeah, and that's what Jesus said, right? That's part of the original parable that we're saying Jesus said that. He had he neither feared God nor had respect for people. So he's not necessarily a good guy, right?
So is Amy
Andy.
Levine saying that we should pray continually?
Oh, she's not saying that. No, she's not saying that.
Well,
What she's saying is that was added by Luke, and she's saying he's trying to set us up for maybe that's the way we should read this parable, but she's saying maybe that's not the way to read it.
Well, how is she saying to read?
Well, she's not going to tell you how to read it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So she's telling me
she's going to challenge you.
As it might be different than what you might have thought it was.
Correct. If you take that part out and you take that last couple of verses out, makes you look at it a little bit differently, right? At least it does for me. That's what she's saying. She's saying verses 3 through 5 are what is accepted as what Jesus would have said.
Faith Focus has used Amy Jill Levine's
Mhm.
years, and we would always, I schedule a bunch of classes
Mhm.
for stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and she always seems to want to create the opportunity for you to think a little deeper
Mm-hmm.
and to ask questions.
Yep.
And to not judge, but to be, sometimes you come away a little bit confused if you actually really sit there and think about it.
Yeah.
And what is it that Jesus meant? What do we take away from it? And at the same time, how she has a slightly different viewpoint.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah.
Yes.
You to think.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. Hold on, let him get you the microphone.
Anytime you see the word justice, that makes that a good person.
Verse 5, I will grant her justice. And then he continues to be a bad guy, just, he's not doing it for the right reasons. So why would you not favor the widow that she's getting just? That's the key word every time we look at these stories in the Bible. The good guy is the one that teaches justice. I just don't understand.
Oh, okay.
What the controversy is about. Who's the good, the bad guy for Luke case?
Okay. All right. Any thoughts on that one?
But isn't that part of what we were saying?
Well, I think
Justice was, yeah, the difference.
I think Luke was trying to give closure, and what Jill Levine is saying is the way Jesus, in her view, the way Jesus actually said it, he was not going to give you any closure. You had to think of that.
Correct. And also the way justice, the original Greek, justice is not how necessarily that should have been translated. It would have been more vengeance.
That's the good guy.
Yeah.
Surely.
He is perfect today, not
Yeah, we want people to have justice. Most of us want people to have justice, right? How about how does it make you feel though to hear it more as vengeance? What do you think about that? Instead of justice, it's vengeance. Oh, he's in charge of it, so he's got his own. Yes.
Pop could have had this. So if vengeance was a better translation, why did the Bible translators translate it as vengeance? Because if you look back through the King James Version, all through every English translation says justice.
I wish I could tell you that, Andy. I don't know why they do that.
Wow.
So Andy, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Amy Jill Levine knows better than anybody else who translated it. I'm telling you that she says the word in Greek is more vengeance than it is justice. You can take Amy Jill Levine's view of this any way you want, just like any other biblical scholar. You can believe it or not believe it. You can put some, where's Eric when we need him?
He's better. You're there.
Well, I don't know that he would tell you anything different than I'm telling you, that she has credibility here, just like a lot of other biblical scholars do. I'm not saying what she's saying is right. I'm saying that this is the way she looks at it. Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah, I mean, it causes some questioning, just like you said the other ones you've done with her. She causes you to think. Other thoughts?
This weird way it's being interpreted now is like God is not like the judge. A lot of times we think these higher folks that we're talking about as kind of being a metaphor or something for God. But you just say God isn't like this judge, and you shouldn't be like this widow either in terms of asking God for things.
Say that again. I'm not sure I understand.
So, if you're saying that if this was intended to seem like the judge is actually God, and that the widow is someone us praying to God, that Jesus wanted us to remember that God is not like this judge, and you shouldn't be like the widow in terms of the way you pray and ask for vengeance and things like that.
That's one way you could look at it. That's one way you could look at it.
You tell Randy got something to say.
Good. Someone who's lived for decades not speaking a native Latin-based language.
Yeah.
Translation's difficult.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking up in the concordance, the word that she's translating is as box, only occurs one time in the entire Bible. That's there. So we don't know if that's an idiom or colloquialism. And I'm not finding justice as she's translating the English justice. It's difficult translating, and there's different codices, like the Codices Sinaiticus, and over the hundreds of years afterwards. So even if German said that after 40, 50 years it's been written, we don't have actual papers or recent informative years. And then 200 years later, that one disagrees first glance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a point, right?
Yeah.
You gotta.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't really know, but.
Also, so just looking up the quick AI overview.
Yes. What does AI say?
Asking what if Augustine lived in 400 AD and was a Greek seeker, how did he translate the word? And he uses justice, which, okay, I don't know. I certainly don't have letters after my name like.
What's that?
King James uses bench.
Bill says King James uses avenge.